Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo. What is going on? It is ya boy, Shawnee Sean. Eagles are Super Bowl champs, and the score was 40-22. If you follow YouTube, check out the music video I made. And if you're on TikTok, what up? Want to talk about NFL free agency and some of the moves in the draft. Teams are getting ready, and should be pretty exciting. NFL season never really stops, so let's get into it. Last night the Chargers released five-time Pro Bowler Joey Bosa. I even made a little short video about it. There are rumors that he might want to join his brother in San Francisco, which would be pretty cool. Um, but a lot of teams always need pass rushers. It's always great to get pressure on the quarterback. And Joey Bosa, even though he has been dealing with some injuries lately, is still a premier pass rusher. Was the third overall pick about 10 years ago. After 9 seasons with the Chargers, made five Pro Bowls, 72 sacks, second in franchise history. So should be able to add a nice pass rush to some team. Matt Stafford says that he's excited to be back with the Rams after getting things worked out. So, welcome back, Stafford. Definitely going to be a little bit of a quarterback carousel. A lot of quarterbacks are potentially on the move and finding new homes this offseason. Darius Slay was released by the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday or a couple days ago. Says that he's open to rejoining the Eagles, and the Eagles did actually free up a lot of cap space when they re signed Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond. I know that usually sounds kind of crazy because when you sign a guy, it usually doesn't free up money. But in this case, it actually did. Because the way Saquon Barkley's contract was structured was pretty much all a signing bonus. I think he's only playing for incentives and like $1 million cap hit. So to get $36 million off the books for the Eagles and reward two or three players that have really done well and helped you win a Super Bowl is pretty commendable. And it shows you the difference between certain GMs and how organizations are run. Howie Roseman seems to be the gold standard of late as far as building teams and construction. And the Dallas Cowboys seem like they are sort of on the opposite end of that spectrum. Jerry Jones is apparently not looking at free agency to fill up holes. Uh, I guess that's because they paid Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb so much money, but they actually did restructure some of them. So it did free up some cap space. They might be able to re-sign Micah Parsons a little earlier, but Jerry Jones usually waits till the last minute. So it's pretty. I don't know. It's got to be tough being a Cowboys fan. I think I would just be frustrated, just being like, why isn't this guy signed yet? Like, but yeah, 49ers, they might be able to get both Bosa brothers. That would be pretty cool. I know that the 49ers are also kind of in cap issues. That's part of the reasons why they traded Debo Samuel to the Commanders and, are willing to at least negotiate about Ayuk. Not to mention that they have to pay Brock Purdy a lot of money pretty soon. Seems like they really like him, even though the Niners seem like they shuffle quarterbacks every 2-3 years. Brock Purdy got them to a Super Bowl, was Mr. Irrelevant, and I'm a big fan of Brock Purdy. He's pretty good. The Browns restructure Deshaun Watson's deal to clear up a lot of space. Seems like he's going to be out the entire season, so it's nice to at least take some money off the books and be able to redistribute it to other players. And I think the Browns will be completely off the books with Deshaun Watson after next year or the year after. But it's been real tough. They will most likely get one of these discount quarterback, veteran quarterbacks, and maybe even draft a guy. The Browns have a top 10 pick. I believe they have number two. I wrote it down somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But the Browns are definitely always desperate for a quarterback. DK Metcalf, where do I think he's going? I don't think he's going to go to the Niners. I think he's going to go to a contender. Green Bay seems like the most hyped up spot for him. Pittsburgh and Baltimore also make a lot of sense for DK Metcalf. A lot of teams honestly need a premier wide receiver, and DK is one of the best on the outside. Real great size and speed. But I don't know. I think he's sort of hit his ceiling. I don't know if he's necessarily going to get so much better. I'm a huge DK Metcalf fan. I have him on my fantasy teams, and I think that he looks like a Greek god, is at least his body. But I don't know. I think on Green Bay, he would really complement those wide receivers, and that would be really exciting. The Giants re signed Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito, baby. Get them Cutlets. I think that him and Drew Lock are now the only quarterbacks on the roster. Expect them to draft or get a quarterback in free agency. I know that Aaron Rodgers has been rumored to the New York Giants. It would be kind of funny if he went from one New York team to another. But yeah, Matt Stafford was also sort of linked to them until he renegotiated his deal with the Rams. Bengals grant defensive end Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. Like I said, there are a lot of teams that need a good premier pass rusher. Hendrickson is definitely one of the better ones in the league. And the Lions, the Buccaneers, Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, Bears, Packers, Colts are all very likely teams that need a guy. As a Browns fan, we take. Yeah, the Browns, I feel like they really wasted Baker Mayfield. They had, a guy that they drafted in a first round pick, and he found greater pastures somewhere else, I guess. I'm really proud of Baker with his resurgence with the Bucks. I feel bad because I wasn't his biggest fan when he was in Cleveland, and I think that was mostly just because he was in Cleveland. Because he was still with Jarvis Landry and OBJ, and I love OBJ. He's one of my favorite players to play football. Same thing with Saquon. So even former Giants can still be or Giants fan. I can still be a fan of former Giants, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Christian Kirk was rumored to be cut, but was actually traded for a seventh round pick to the Texans. I love this move for the Texans. Really great value, to get a good deep threat, and probably complements Tank Dell and what's his name? Their other wide receivers. So this should be very good. It looks like Devontae Adams is actually going to be a free agent or was released. And there are a lot of very good free agents available. Amari Cooper is also out there. Some running backs. Kyle Fuller, Antoine Walker, Jordan Poyer, Jacoby Brissett, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Tyler Conklin, Nelson Aguilar. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Sorry if I'm eating seeds. Bobby Wagner also re-signs with the Commanders on a 1-year, $9.5 million contract. That should be nice for him to sort of shore up the middle of that defense as he did last year. And, rebuild the Commanders. He did very well in Quinn's defense. And, he's not quite the player that he used to be with Seattle, but Wagner is still a very highly productive linebacker and, the leader of the Commanders' defense at this point. So having Jaden and him should be a nice combo. There's a lot of talks and rumors about Shundur Sanders falling out of the top 10 or even the first round. I think that's complete bullshit. Maybe some guys are just trying to tank his value or don't like the confidence that him and his father and swagger that they have. But I'm telling you right now, Shundur Sanders is going to be a top 10 pick. I'm extremely confident about it. And I don't know. I'll swallow the seeds whole if not. I don't know really what to threat myself with. But there are at least like 10 teams that are probably going to be interested in him. Tennessee has the first pick. I don't know if they're going to go quarterback, and they might get with the pass rusher Abdul Carter from Penn State. Cleveland Browns, like I mentioned, could always use a quarterback, so it'd be nice to see if Shundur goes there, um, resolves all of Cleveland's issues, and yeah, I think that's actually one of the teams that he liked to play on or with in Madden. So curious to see that. Nico, thank you. I was blanking on Nico Collins' name a minute ago, so I appreciate the I don't know the comment, Joseph, and Tank Dell. I think that those two and Christian Kirk can really complement each other, especially with the addition of Joe Mixon that they had last year and another year of C.J. Stroud. I'm pretty high on the Texans. They actually had a decent year. They still made it to the playoffs and made some noise. So if they just retool and get a little more experience, I'm a huge fan of D'Amico Ryans, former linebacker of the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, Loved him as a coach and a D coordinator with the Niners, and I think that he's one of the better coaches in the league. So if I feel like if I were a player, I'd love to play with him. But the Raiders are also extremely interested in Shundur Sanders. They have the sixth pick. And I know Tom Brady trained with him when the kid was in high school, so I think that connection alone can really set things up. And he would look awesome in Vegas. I really don't know if he's going to slip much further than that. The Giants and Jets are also still in quarterback need. And, even if he slipped to 9, the Saints are also pretty desperate for a quarterback, even though I am a big fan of Spencer Rattler. They need another wide receiver, especially if Diggs is out. Yeah, I think Diggs is a free agent, so it would be nice to get Christian Kirk there, get a nice speed guy in the slot. But going back to Shundur Sanders, he's very accurate, tough, creative with his throwing lanes, and might not be the best runner, but I think he usually runs to make better throws. Very similar to like a bigger version of Bryce Young or Geno Smith. I think he's better than Dak Prescott or has a better ceiling. But like I said a minute or two ago, some teams may be a little bit dissuaded or not so interested in Shundur because of Dion and the baggage that his father brings. Dion's been open saying that he doesn't want Shundur to play for certain teams. And certain teams may not take that lightly. But if you remember Dion, like 20 or when he was a draft prospect, the New York Giants gave him like this like huge thick binder of like questions and reads and stuff, and he was just like, "What pick do you guys have?" And then like totally gave them back the book and said like, "I don't care, dude. I'm not gonna be in your range. You're gonna either have to pick up to trade up to get me." And that's not arrogance when you're that good, because I don't know. Deion Sanders was a special athlete, and I'm not saying Shundur is quite on that same level. Travis Hunter is, but Shundur Sanders is still a quarterback. There were, I think, like 8 quarterbacks in the top 12 last year, or 6 quarterbacks in the top 12 last year. So I'm very confident that at least 3 are going to go in the first round, and 2 in the top 10, because Cam Ward is not my favorite prospect. I'll be completely honest. I think he's got a great arm and a really quick release time, but I think his footwork's a little bit lazy. And I personally prefer Shundur Sanders. I also like Jackson Dart and Jalen Milrow. And then some even late round flyer quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel, the kid from Oregon's pretty good, and Will Howard from Ohio State, national champion, not so bad. So there are definitely some late round flyers that you could potentially groom a guy, especially if you have one of those aging veterans and want to compete for a starting job. Um, as far as like quarterback movement, I want to get into that because I did have a good thing. You give me one sec now. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be somewhat of a quarterback carousel. A lot of the free agent quarterbacks might even make some moves. But if I had to predict where some of these guys are going, I'd say the Giants might draft Cam Ward. He's definitely one of the top prospects, and the Giants have a top 10 pick. They could use a quarterback. Daniel Jones was cut, and then Drew Lock and Tommy Cutlets just didn't really get things done. But I imagine that they're probably going to draft a guy for the Giants. The Tennessee Titans, they have Will Levis on the roster, but they could potentially try to scoop up a veteran like Sam Darnold just to sort of compete, give him a little bit pressure, but also start and maybe have Will Levis learn from under him. The Raiders are definitely desperate for a quarterback. They actually cut Gardner Minshew yesterday or a couple days ago. So I like the idea of them maybe scooping up Aaron Rodgers and then drafting Shundur Sanders to learn from him. I think that would be such a cool thing, especially with Tom Brady being the owner slash GM, not GM, but a part owner of the Raiders. I think it'd be really cool if he teamed up with Aaron Rodgers and then got the young prospect. But at the same time, I also want to see Shundur Sanders start from day one. And if Aaron Rodgers is on that roster, that's not going to happen. But it would be a great person for him to learn under. Just stay away from the ayahuasca and darkness retreats. Let's see. Who do you think the Seahawks are going to get for DK? They're probably going to get like a first or second round pick. I think he only has one more year on his deal, and he's got like a $20 million cap hit. So it's definitely going to be better value than Debo. I can 100% say that. But I'm sort of I think Debo's past his prime at this point. I also think he's a little bit overweight, but he should complement Terry McLaurin and be a nice big body and sort of bully for the Washington offense. And Jane Daniels definitely was missing some wide receiver talent. But I'm very intrigued where DK might be going, especially as a fantasy owner of his. But awesome speed and size on the outside. But I imagine that he'll dictate at least a second round pick. But again, that $20 million cap hit is going to slightly lower the value, and not to mention he's probably going to want a new deal once he gets traded. Washington fan scared of Debo is washed. Yeah, I mean, I think I just mentioned it a minute ago. You might have heard it, but I sort of think Debo is, I don't want to say washed, but past his prime and a little bit overweight, but should still be a very good addition to the Washington offense. But at the same time, Washington could have waited till free agency. Heck, they could have even tried to get DK. So it's I don't want to say buyer's remorse, but they sort of got a little bit trigger happy and just went after the first guy that was available. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers and their quarterback situation, it seems like Fields is going to be back. I know that they also like Russ, but Fields is going to probably cost less and, had some upside and played pretty well in the times when he started last year. Um, but yeah, the New York Jets seem actually like a prime destination for Russell Wilson, especially since they are moving on from Rodgers. Um, yeah, I don't know. Russ just seems like a good fit in New York, and Cleveland, I kind of love the idea if they would get a veteran and a rookie. Kirk Cousins, Jalen Milrow combo would be really cool. Um, Kirk Cousins would probably start about 3, 4 games, and then, Cleveland would just automatically see his limitations like he did in with the Falcons this year. And Jalen Milrow, I really like as a prospect. His hands apparently grew an inch over the past few weeks. That actually didn't happen. I think it was a mismeasurement of his hands, but pretty wild to even hear that a guy's hands grew that quickly. um, but yeah, I wish we waited for DK or Devontae. Yeah, if I were a Washington fan, you probably could have gotten Devontae for less than Debo because Debo's getting at least $17 million. I think his cap hit was like 2022, but I guess the 49ers swallowed up some of that. But yeah, Devontae can still catch and is still a great wide receiver. DK is also still doing great things. So it's really sad to see that the Seattle Seahawks now are gonna just not passing balls to. I appreciate the comments, bro. Um, sorry, I got a little distracted there. It seems like Cooper Kupp returning to the Rams would be the least likely scenario, so it sounds like he might be traded or even cut. That is a little bit of a surprise, but I guess a lot of these wide receivers are going to be making some moves. Darius Slay was cut by the Philadelphia Eagles. Said he's open to returning back to Philly. On a podcast with Amon-Ra St. Brown, he also said that he would be open to returning back to Detroit, the team that drafted him. And it definitely seems like Slay wants to play one more year and ideally for a contender. So we'll see if he either resigns with the Philadelphia Eagles, Lions, or lands somewhere else. The Baltimore Ravens were very interested in him 2 years ago, but then Big Dom came in and said, "Nah, you ain't leaving. You're gonna win a Super Bowl with the Birds," and that happened. So pretty nice. Um, Jerry Jones sort of contradicts himself. Last year he said that he was all in, and then this year says, is freeing up cap space, but doesn't want to make a big splash. So who knows really what the Cowboys are ever doing. Browns restructure Deshaun Watson's contract to free up some space. Giants re-sign Tommy DeVito. So yeah, Bengals are open to moving Hendrickson. Jags trade Christian Kirk for a 7th round pick to the Texans. So a lot of cuts, releases, and some trades. Bobby Wagner resigns with the Commanders. So yeah, I mean there are a lot of team needs going into free agency and the draft. Maybe not so much for the Eagles because they just won everything. But let me know if you're what team you are, and maybe I'll address some of the wants and needs and how that team might address them. Starting with the Cardinals, they definitely need a lot of help. On the defensive line, they could use a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, some linebackers, some interior on offensive linemen. Another wide receiver would also be nice. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a pretty nice rookie season. Maybe not the best rookie wide receiver season. I would probably give that hat to Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars. He really impressed me. I low-key wanted him. Cliff had a relationship with him too. Yeah, would have been a lot cheaper than Debo. The Falcons could use some cornerback help, some edge rushers, some safety. They really need to improve their defense, and maybe even get a backup quarterback or a starting quarterback if they don't feel like Penix is the guy. I'm curious to see what Penix got. He's got a big lefty arm and some swag, so curious to see how he spins it. The Falcons definitely have some offensive talent with Bijan, London, and Pitts. And yeah, I definitely want to see that offense start humming. But Kirk Cousins just didn't really get things done, if you ask me. Panthers have needs really all over. Should we keep Allen? The Allen on defense, the pass rusher. I think so. He's been great for the Commanders, but he's also probably gonna dictate a lot of money on the free agency market. I know he's had some injury issues, I guess, but he was really the foundation of that D line for the past few years, especially since they traded away Chase Young and Roquan Smith. So I mean, it really depends on what this new ownership for the Commanders want to do. It's really hard to read what they want to do. They only have one off season technically in the books, but we'll see. The Bears could use some help, especially on the pass rush, D end. They could probably replace a wide receiver since I think Keenan Allen is leaving. So, big fan of Roma Dunze and DJ Moore. But with the three of them, it was kind of weird. I think Chase Young is actually a free agent. I think he signed a 1 year deal with the Saints last year. Um, and kind of a fall from grace. He was one of the most exciting prospects coming out. Literally, this the same year as Joe Burrow. I mean, I might Yee. I don't know who you are, but if you request again, maybe I'll let you in. I'm curious what you got to say, Yee. But Whit Yerby, welcome to the chat. Frame jersey, dude. That is a tough one. I feel for you, Dom. But you might be able to capitalize. I'm sure there are a lot of big Ohio State fans that would still love a framed Chase Young jersey, even if it's not on the team that he plays for right now. He was a premier talent at Ohio State, and they definitely have a loyal fan base. So I wouldn't be surprised if you had to get rid of it. You could. But maybe he just needs a change of scenery. Maybe if he lands in a new spot, he can research his career, or maybe he'll just bet on himself so that he can cash in and get a big deal. Um, the Lions definitely could use a cornerback, like I mentioned. So they definitely have a connection with Slay. Could also definitely use a little bit more on a pass rush, defensive end, or edge rusher. And another wide receiver wouldn't hurt either, even though I love what Jamerson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown are doing. And even Laporta. The Lions are such a fun team, honestly. Even as an Eagles fan, I was rooting for the Lions 2 years ago when the Eagles were dropped out of the playoffs. So the Lions, Dan Campbell biting off kneecaps, and Jared Goff's redemption story is very fun to root for. With the Packers, Jordan Love is a fun guy also to root for. It looks like they are very interested in adding a wide receiver. They've had connections to DK Metcalf. So we'll see. Maybe they even bring back Devontae Adams back. That would be pretty cool. And it actually seems like they might be moving on from Jair Alexander, their cornerback. So they would probably need a new cornerback on the outside as well. I love Jair Alexander. Strapped up, and then give the ball to kid wearing 23, something like that. I love that quote. He's just a fun guy to root for. So if he is no longer with the Packers, I hope he lands on his feet and is on a competitive team. So yeah, maybe talk about some other teams. Let's see what. Oh, whoa, hello. Let's see what Washington. Washington could definitely use an edge rusher and defensive tackle. They definitely addressed their wide receiver need with Debo, but they could still add another guy. I like Luke McCaffrey, but he's young and inexperienced still. I even like De'Ami Brown, who's not particularly that great. But they have $64 million in free agent in cap space, um, and definitely could improve the pass rush. They've been linked to Miles Garrett, so we'll see. Um, yeah, I would like them to draft a running back too. I think that Austin Eckler is way past his prime. I'm a big fan of Brian Robinson Jr. Many men, homie got shot. But they could definitely use a second guy to complement him. And no offense to Eckler, but I think he's a little bit past his prime. Did have a pretty good season with the Washington this past year. And it provides that pass catching value, but I think that they need like a home run hitter, a really speedy guy. Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, could actually be a good fit for them. There are like rumors that there are going to be like, well, I'd say two running backs in the first round, in Ashton Gentry from Boise State, and then the UNC running back Omarion Hampton, I think is his name. But then the two kids from Ohio State are really good running back prospects. Um, and yeah, I just hear that this is one of the better running back drafts in a long time. Um, and last year a lot of running backs got paid, and it actually worked out it worked out for all the teams that signed a guy. Free agents like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs all really performed extremely well on their new teams. Saquon Barkley was Offensive Player of the Year. Derrick Henry revitalized that offense, and Lamar looked so good with a real threat in the backfield with him. And Josh Jacobs really just picked up the pieces that AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones left behind. So it looked like he was more efficient with one guy. So we'll see how those teams do, and what teams get free agents and running backs. Eagles lost to the Cardinals. Yeah, I guess I don't know. It wasn't so bad. Eagles are doing just fine. They beat the Chiefs, so I could care less if we lost to the Cardinals. um, but the Cardinals definitely have some pieces and some needs to address. Like I said, wide receiver seems like a big need for them, but we will see. Let's see what else is out there. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to talk about. Or some overreactions, some top prospects to talk about. Abdul Carter, the pass rusher from Penn State, I mentioned, is a really good pass rusher. Apparently, is going through some injuries, but shouldn't really affect his draft spot. It's apparently dealing with his foot, but still expected to work out on his pro day, and teams don't really seem to be overly concerned. Travis Hunter is also one of the best prospects I've seen in football in just a couple years. One of the, I'd say, a top five corner and wide receiver in this draft, which is just hard to believe that he wants to play both positions on the NFL level. Um, but yeah, I mean, Heisman Trophy winner, says he wants to play both sides of the ball. I think realistically on the NFL level, he's probably going to play cornerback mostly, and then have some packages on offense. But we will see. Antonio, I appreciate you sticking with me, bro. Hope you're enjoying it, and let me know what your team is. Maybe I'll give you a shout out, or tell you a little bit about how I think they're going to be doing. Ashton Gentry is Genty is also an incredible talent, running back from Boise State. Was really excited to see him run with the ball this year. Literally stood up. I mean, he's like 5'6", so he's standing up like a straight tall, but has a low center of gravity, and might be one of the best running backs in the draft since Bijan or Saquon. Literally reminds a lot of scouts of Barry Sanders, the way he runs the ball, and is just so hard to tackle. And really has a second gear, similar to like a Dalvin Cook, J.K. Dobbins combo, we'll call it, but like peak Dalvin Cook, not Dalvin Cook last year. But the Bills, yo, I'm a huge fan of Josh Allen. Love that he married Haley Steinfeld, better than Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift as far as the NFL celebrity couples. Curious to see what they do with wide receiver. Amari Cooper, I think, is a free agent, and they traded away Stephon Diggs last offseason. I think Stephon Diggs is actually a free agent too, so maybe they bring him back. Probably not going to happen. Um, they did draft Keon Coleman last year, who I'm a big fan of. Kid's got a lot of personality and fun and exciting. Yeah, but the Bills, I'll talk bad. You got screwed with that first down call or lack of. Um, so I think maybe some offensive line help and some wide receiver talent can really go a long way. But I'm a big fan of Cook's little brother. James Cook had a pretty good season and is probably going to get paid a lot of money. So I don't want to say worried, but that James Cook is going to be getting a payday pretty soon. Some other exciting prospects. Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, is pretty intriguing. Long, lean, pretty good pass catcher, national champion a year ago, and probably the top tight end in this draft. I also like Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's son, the defensive end for the Dolphins for a number of years, but his son plays tight end at LSU, is age 20. I'm hearing that he might actually be a second round pick at this point, or going in that area. I thought he was going to be a day three guy initially, but he had a really good performance at the combine, so we'll see. A little too early to do a mock draft, but I'll probably do at least the first round, because I do like to address team needs and speculate where certain guys might go. But as far as like draft positioning and areas, I'm very confident that Shandor Sanders will be a top 10 pick. So if you hear Nick Wright or some other analysts say that he's going to fall out of the first round or out of the top 20, I think they're just smoking something really good. um, but yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I think Cam Ward's also going to be a top 10 pick. There are just so many quarterback needy teams. And I am not the biggest fan of his, but who knows? Last year there were like six quarterbacks in the top 10 or top 12. And I was really high on Bo Nix last year, and he really proved me right. Honestly, looked great in Sean Payton's offense, and I'm excited to see how he develops going forward. And that goes with all the quarterbacks from last year. Drake May. I'm excited to see what he does with the Patriots. And should the Cardinals? What should the Cardinals draft? What do you think? I think that they should get a pass rusher ideally, but I think that they also need to address another wide receiver and some O line help. And I'm still not even sold on their running back situation. I think that would be a luxury, so they can't necessarily address a running back in the first two rounds. But the Cardinals are in a tough situation because they're in like this middle ground of the NFL where they're a competitive team on a weekly basis, but they're not necessarily a guaranteed playoff team. And even if they make the playoffs, I'm not like that scared of the Cardinals making that much noise when there are teams like the Ravens and the Chiefs and even the Bengals in their conference. So. Or wait, are I misspoke there. The Cardinals are in the NFC, but they would still have to deal with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Lions and the Packers. So they might make a little noise. They could probably win a playoff game next year, but I don't really see them going much further than that. Especially with the emergence of the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, I think that they are going to be a consistent playoff team for the next for years to come. So yeah, I don't know. Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama, is a pretty intriguing prospect. He's pretty tall and explosive. I always like linebackers out of Alabama. Will Anderson turned out to be pretty good. Dallas Turner turned out to be pretty good. D'Amico Ryan's the coach. Was an Alabama linebacker once upon a time. So yeah, Omarion Hampton was the running back from UNC I was talking about, and he's very big for a linebacker or for a running back. Kind of reminds me a little bit of who was Brandon Jennings from the New York Giants back in the day, but very big, very strong, but can also make you miss in the open field and a decent pass catcher, at least effective in the pass game. So can run angle routes, screens, shovels. Guy's pretty reliable hands, and he's a big body, so he should be a decent blocker. I haven't seen his tape in blocking, so I don't want to be misquoted there, but because of his size, he should be able to mismatch, protect a quarterback, and also open up lanes for other running backs. But yeah, Antonio, if you want to chat about the Cardinals, I'm definitely open to it. I might need to do a little bit more of a deeper dive into the roster construction. But you got an Eagles former coordinator as your coach, so I can't hate too much. And big fan of Kyler, even though he is a little bit small and we'll call it distracted by video games. But he's also really good at video games, so don't hate him too much. One of the best wide receivers in this year's draft is Tet McMillan from Arizona. Huge, big body and huge catch radius. Very similar to like a Drake London type skill set. So Tet McMillan from Arizona should be a pretty exciting prospect. Gonna definitely be a first round pick. And I would imagine the Ohio State wide receiver, Emeka Ibuka, will also be a first round pick. He's a sort of a, we'll call it a dark horse for the Eagles, I think, for the Eagles to get. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Eagles wanted to get another wide receiver and get a little younger, even though I do love Jahan Dotson as that third guy. Didn't really make too much noise. And the Eagles' pass game was still very successful, just going to AJ and Devontae. But they can always add another guy. Shindor Sanders, like I mentioned earlier, is my favorite quarterback in this year's draft. Has great touch and quick release. The Colorado offensive line really never gave him that much time to throw the ball, so it was exciting to see where he goes, and I'm a big fan of his father, Deion Sanders, as his sort of hype man. But some teams are, just turned off a little bit by his confidence, we'll call it, or swagger. But let me know if there are any free agents or draft prospects you want to talk about or look into. Luther Burden's also one of the top 3 wide receivers in this year's class. Kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Justin Jefferson. He's really quick and athletic slot receiver. Can play a little bit on the outside, but really excels in the middle on option routes because it just kind of lets him use his body control and quick twitch movements, and very good with yards after the catch. So very excited to see where he goes. Kind of similar to a Stephon Diggs. That's probably the more accurate comparison than the poor man's Justin Jefferson, but whenever you say Justin Jefferson, people get excited. So yeah, Travion Henderson was the running back at Ohio State that I was talking about. Pretty big with elite speed and versatility. Also decent pass catcher, but can break a tackle and go for that home run hitter. But should be a 3-down weapon on the NFL level, brimming with big play potential. So definitely a big, exciting player there. And then his running mate at Ohio State, Quinshawn Judkins, was also very good. But yeah, like I said, Mason Taylor looks like he has promoted himself into the second round, and one of the top tight end prospects in this year's draft, son of an NFL player, and could be a potential day one starter. Jackson Dart is also a quarterback that I really like, very accurate, and was sort of showing off a little bit at the combine with throwing to wide receivers that he's never even met. But very good athlete, and I don't know. Some people or I think some people were trying to compare him to Jalen Hurts, and I think that it wasn't necessarily about the play style, but more that he might be like a end of the first or second round pick. So like I don't want to say disrespected, but not the consensus number one. But has really good arm power, good competitive spirit, and is sort of a winner. If I'm being completely honest, though, I love the guy replacing him at Ole Miss. I think his name is something Austin. Shoot, I just had it on the top of my head. But big arm lefty, was drafted for MLB and turned it down. Had like a 5.0. Austin something. Oh shoot, I hold on. Give me 1 second. Ole Miss QB is Austin Simmons. Yeah, I was close. I wasn't sure if Austin was the first or last name, though, and that was confusing me. Um, Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami, is also pretty good. Just a pretty good tight end draft. It seems like there are at least 3 or 4 guys that could be in the first two rounds. So stay tuned for potentially 3 or 4 quarterbacks, tight ends, and running backs all in the first 2 rounds. I think Shandor is going to be a top 10 pick. I think it is blasphemy that some guys think that he's going to slip out of the top 20 or even the first round. I have at least like 7 teams that he could go to in. Shandor could very much land with the Titans, who have the first round pick. The first pick, I doubt he's going to go there, but the Browns could use a quarterback. They have the second pick. The Raiders have the 6th pick. They could use a quarterback. The New York Giants have the 3rd pick. They could use a quarterback. The New York Jets have the 7th pick. They could use a quarterback. The Saints have the 9th pick. They could use a quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers have the 22nd pick. They could use a quarterback. They would have to trade up, I think, to get him. But I very much believe that this talk about Shandor falling out of the first round is just complete bullshit. Maybe it's Nick Wright. I heard him say that earlier today. So he said that he could slip to the Pittsburgh at 22, which would be a great landing spot. I don't want to discount that, and it would be awesome to see him throw some balls to George Pickens, but I don't know. And thank you guys for killing the Chiefs and getting lucky. Yeah, I don't know if it was luck so much. I think the Eagles just had the better team with the Chiefs. But going against Pat Mahomes, it's really hard to tell. That dude has definitely made some amazing comebacks and won multiple Super Bowls. So I don't want to disrespect him too much, even though I definitely do on times. But Kermit was humbled a little bit by the Birds. Cooper DeJean had that pick 6. Zach Bond got rewarded with a new contract and got that interception also. Eagles defense looked just like they were flustering Pat Mahomes all game. It was a beautiful thing to see. I had a friend talk to me the other day on the phone, and he was like, the game was pretty boring by halftime. And I was like, yeah, well, you're talking to an Eagles fan. I was on cloud 9 the entire time, loving it. So the fact that it was 34-0, I was just sitting back and relaxing, which is hard to do in a Super Bowl, but also just like any game when you're playing the Chiefs. So pretty nice. Sanquestador. I don't know if I said that name right. But let me know what team you are a fan of, and maybe I can give you some live feedback or tell you what's going on. And Grip for G Tag, what up, homie? I see you on YouTube. Thank you for joining the show, and hope you're enjoying, the bullshit that I'm spitting. But I'm, very excited for the NFL draft and learning a little bit more about these prospects and where they might land or these team needs. But yeah, a lot of restructures. Don't know if I'm going to stay on that much longer, but I appreciate everyone for tuning in, liking, following, and subscribing. If you are a fan of Taylor Swift, the song 22, I did a silly remixed version. You can check on YouTube. It's called 4022. It's about the score of the Super Bowl where the Eagles defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. It's got a lot of funny, snarky content. So hope you can check that out and like, follow, subscribe. And yeah, I'll go live again. But until next time, go Birds. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. My name's Sean, and I like football. Peace out. Give me my balloons.